And also touch a little bit on succession and leadership planning, since you want to have a cadre of candidates to be able to or a pool of volunteers to go to be able to fill the positions within your section. So the nominations and appointments chair is so what I'll be describing here are actually what's described in the CLE training is typical processes. It may vary by section, and the key thing I focused on here is that the processes in smaller sections may be less formal. As I look through the description in the training, it's like I'm not even sure if the big sections are as formal as what's called out in the training. That the nominations chair is appointed to any, and he or she reports to this section chair. And in that role, this person may or may not be a member of the section XCOM. It's really up to the section chair. The person needs to be selected based on their previous experiences as an officer and leader in the section. And very typically and often it's the outgoing section chair who has that position.
Is it required that the person not end up being on the next roster to be?
I'll cover that.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay.
That's part of the question, because it makes it strange. That's actually a hard requirement.
Yep, I'll cover that. So this person is responsible for forming a small committee of it's basically your section nominating committee, and that committee should consist of experienced section leaders, and it can be just like a couple folks. But then this person is also responsible then for pulling together a recommended slate of candidates for the various elected officer positions in advance of whatever deadline is set by the section chair. And in parallel with those activities, then this chair is an excellent resource for identifying potential volunteer leaders from other IEEE organizational units, like some of the societies, within the technical societies within the section. And of course, this person is also responsible for keeping the section XCOM informed on the progress. And
does the person have to be actually member?
Yep. Well, I think that's implied, because it has to be somebody who has previous experience as an officer and leader in the section. So if they've previously been an officer, it means they've been an IEEE member at least during that time. So as I mentioned, this person pulls together the section nominating committee, and in the training it said 3 or more section members who are not currently section officers. So I know within our section, though, we don't always abide by that. Exactly. This is one of those I looked at and I said, okay, right. So maybe in big sections with a lot larger population to draw from, but for us it's not practical.
If you have a large population to draw from, like the people, you would want somebody who's active and involved, and if they're active and involved, they're an officer. They might not be the chair, but they're an officer of something.
But they also, the way it reads, can't be considered as part of the slate.
So you're dropping down to the third bullet.
Yeah, that's the part that's the part.
And that's for the elected positions. So if you have somebody that says the PACE chair and is planning on being the PACE chair the next year, they arguably could be a member of this this committee. So is that
my executive decision is that only chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer count.
Right, and that makes perfect sense, and
Being like considered.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's true.
and when I was section chair, our only elected positions were chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. All the other positions were appointed. Now, some of our section chairs have said no, they want those positions to be elected as well.
I was, maybe I did it a little different. What I said was, these must be, but anybody can be. So if you self-nominate for a position, you become part of the slate, and then at that point you would be put out there. And
Generally, if we had somebody that self-nominated for the other position, everybody else was, great, you've got the job.
Yeah.
And why look any further?
Yeah, we have that too.
I don't think I've ever seen contention for like vice chair.
No.
Jennifer's been fighting them off for years. Send me for a war chair. It's mine.
There is one that's actually fighting very hard to get there, and everybody that listens says, "Oh, no way."
Now, so Dan, going to your question about whether or not nominating committee members can be considered for the positions, so there's actually an out for that. So it states that they can't be considered due to conflict of interest, but if somebody on the committee twists their arm, or if somebody says, no, you're the natural candidate for the job, then that person can then resign from the nominating committee and take the nomination.
Well, and that's okay too, as long as
Right.
as long as you got somebody to be nominated. Okay?
Yep. And the next bullet recommends slate of 2 to 3 candidates for each office. If we can find 2 candidates, we consider ourselves very lucky.
More than one.
Exactly.
And I have just seen oftentimes that, why look for contention? And, nobody likes to not get elected. It's not, nobody likes that.
I don't know, I've had one position at my church that I was asked to run for that I was very happy that I wasn't elected. It was like my question was, okay, it was a committee position. It's like, okay, how many openings are there? How many candidates are there? And I figured, okay, my chances are pretty good that I won't be elected.
But I also think it's hard in the IEEE community, and I'll look at our section. Take, for example, excuse me, I've been treasurer, I'm vice chair, hope to be chair next year, but it would be difficult I would fine if you want to run against me, but it would be difficult if that person went out. Though they never were treasurer, they were never vice chair, and they haven't been involved. I mean, that's a difficult stance.
Well, and that's actually part of what he's going to talk about next, I think, is the part of the responsibility of the nominating committee is to make certain that they are viable candidates, not just somebody that raised their hand.
Yep. Segue.
That's a different, no, I agree with Jennifer.
Yeah, but I agree with it.
I
It's
just
gotta be
never see
somebody.
that happen either.
Okay.
And this really factors into the election process, and so this also touches on the timeline. So basically, the nomination chair is supposed to issue the call for nominations 6 months before election. Again, this was in the training. Yes. Maybe some. Yeah. So and actually, that's taken straight from the MGA Ops Guide as well. So maybe the Ops Guide needs to be updated to be more realistic.
Well, the fact is that I don't think anybody reads this stuff. I haven't read this stuff until Paige Young asked me a question, how long do you have to leave it out there?
Right.
And she said, how about a week? And I said, give me just a week. And then I read this whole thing, and I said, oh, crap, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Anyway.
When they 6 months.
Right.
Well,
6 months, yeah.
And the concept is that you put the initial ballot out there 3 months in advance so that people can go say, hey, I hate that guy, I'll self-nominate that.
Well, that makes
Right.
sense for
And-
like MC and Lawful or like actually.
Yeah, well, I would say that
This
this
is-
complicated process is rather what is happening at the galactic level. And it is truly happening.
And it's been in the operation guide. They dropped it down to the lower levels as well.
But so I was told because because I'm director-elect, I'm supposed to be on a board-level committee. And so, oh, what board-level committee? Well, go look at the list, and then, so you're supposed to get nominated, and you can self-nominate by, I think it was March 15th. And then they send you, and you have to do a whole, like 2-page thing with a position statement. And then you have to get that in, and then the nomination and whatever committee that Mike Andrews is on, then they'll consider like who are we going to pick to run to be on this committee. And then the election would be in November so that you could join the committee next year. And this happens for all these galactic level things. But this process, which seems to be the identical process.
Yeah, and then it's all broken. I mean, it's really, okay, and so what you really happens down to is what you just said. On a best case, about the 3rd of December, somebody says, hey, we probably ought to have a nomination set. We clear up we go to XCOM, we clear up the roster, we publish it and say this is going to be it unless somebody screams. And 2 weeks later we say election, the polls will be, and you let the open V-tools and it's open for 2 weeks, and then by the second week of January you're done.
So we're getting, yes.
Yeah. And then, does it work for you?
Works fine. Our participation rate is abysmal.
Yeah.
It's like less than 5%.
Right.
How about, I mean, that's another question I have before is, okay, so nomination committee, what if they only got one candidate? Do we open the option for people to write up other people?
Yep.
We always do,
That's the reason
yes.
that you have to give it at least 2 weeks. So somebody says, I hate that guy. I
Well,
want to run.
well, even on the election ballot, if we have just one candidate for a position, which is the general case, then we let them do a write-in as well.
We didn't. Yep.
Have you ever had one?
What, election?
No.
Write-in?
Never seen one in all 8 years I've been a member.
I remember writing in. I wrote in once, anyone but him.
Really sad.
Actually, I think there was one time I wrote in the name of the person who I knew would be counting the ballot the ballots afterwards.
He didn't want that job, right?
So this is generating exactly the type of discussion I wanted to see for this, because when I did up these slides, I knew this isn't realistic. This isn't how our section does it. I didn't think it's how other sections do it. But I wasn't I wasn't really in position to make up my own rules as I went.
In San Diego. I am the tellers committee in San Diego.
What's the tellers mean?
It means you count the ballot.
Okay.
See, they have it on their tellers committee.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Tellers.
So the point is, because you have a secret ballot, that somebody has to count the ballot. So the teller shouldn't be on the ballot. Although I'm always on the ballot because I'm unopposed as chapter chair. But so it's the teller, and it used to be that you'd mail in the ballots, and you'd be in a room, and there would be 3 of you counting them. But now I go to Google Docs. And well, it's not really automated, but that's why we were saying, oh, let's go to V-Tools, and the person who's doing it, like, yeah, all right, next year I'll do V-Tools. That's why I was asking you.
Well,
Yeah, it's not too bad to set it up in V-Tools.
Well, it not just counts them, but
It also vets the voters as well.
We have 25 or more chapters in San Diego, and you're only supposed to vote in a chapter election if you're a member. But when you just do a Google Docs, you can't.
Not only that, but it also vets the candidates. It makes sure that the candidates are eligible as
Right.
well.
So I'm all for it. I'm just wondering, like, I'm glad to hear you guys are using it successfully, and we should follow it.
Yeah, successfully, except for the fact that it does make it more difficult for the members to vote.
One person per position.
Oh,
Only one candidate per. No, I'm not saying it forces that. I'm saying that's what's reality for us.
Oh, yeah.
But everybody's running unopposed.
But to me, that's okay. I think that's okay.
As long as there's an option for them to have a chance to come and get in.
As long as you're announcing the candidates
Yep.
and
Saying if
Yep.
you want to
not
do something
rigging
else,
it, yeah.
come tell us and we'll let you in.
Of course, so the third bullet talks about verifying the candidate's eligibility and willingness to serve, and I mean that's never been an issue. Well, the willingness to serve. I mean, if their name has come up, then yeah, we definitely always check that. We usually don't have them provide a position statement, but we ask them to provide a short bio, and then vTools will let us enter that on the ballot as well. And some candidates provide a bio and others don't.
Well, and it seems like it's very important actually to start your election before December 31st.
No question.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so
Because you'd
next
like
slide.
it to be
Yes.
that would be the election day.
Yeah. So the next slide goes into key dates.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And so this kind of touches on some of the dates as well. That communicating the slate to the voting members at least 6 weeks before the election date, right? I think we communicate the slate to the voting members the day that we open the election.
Yeah, that's all right.
And then provide in lieu of making provision for petition candidates, we provide for write-in candidates.
You know,
It's
that-
not quite as good,
Chris,
but
that's really what
it's
we
more
do.
pragmatic.
But isn't that kind of unfair to anybody that would like to come in and says, listen, I hate that guy, I'd like to be on the ballot?
That hasn't come up as an issue for us. I mean, if it's somebody that's interested in the position, then they're already active in the
Everybody
section.
knows it, they've already
Yeah.
expressed their interest. Yeah,
It- Effectively, it's not an issue, but the truth, it does come up occasionally when you have the volunteer who wants to be in all these positions that isn't really suitable.
For any of them.
For any of them. And,
That's why you want to have him be voted on.
yeah.
And that way, membership that's aware, hopefully they're aware.
But yeah, I think you really should try to, post the candidates somewhere, like at least on your web.
But you can post it on vTools. That's the thing that's nice about that
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yep.
Once the slate's done, all you have to do, if you really had it done 2 or 3 weeks in advance, you could say post and it's there and people see it. And then they can say, oh, this is what the initial slate is. I don't like that slate. I want to self-nominate for that one, and they can. Now, you didn't say it, but isn't there a rule that you can't be on more than one position?
As far as more than one elected position, so the required elected positions are chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer, and the secretary and treasurer can be combined into a single position.
Right, those are elected, but
Right.
now, if I, as a candidate, put my name down on all 5 of those, I don't think that's allowed, is it?
I've never seen that come up where
Never
we've
seen
tried
it
to put
either,
one
and I thought
for
that was
multiple
actually in the
positions.
rules somewhere where it could be. Anyway,
Oh, basically you want the other person to be opposite.
yeah, well, that would be great, you end up being him, he wins all 5.
Well, the
Sections,
students typically
then it
run it
becomes-
separately for that reason that, if you lose for chair, you can win vice chair.
Right, yeah. Or, well, I was worried more the other way. You won for all 5, and now you have one guy that's is the entire expo. That's the part that worried me the more. If there was somebody that was incredibly popular. Last time we had anybody incredibly popular was Cleo.
You could almost set your bylaws to say that individual has to choose one, and then it would default to the individual who came in second for the other positions.
Yeah.
I think
It makes it
is a
pretty
problem. You're right, I don't
complicated.
think you can allow, I think you should tell a person, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it, you're creating contradictions
Chaos.
in our
Yeah,
system.
in our system, because we can't have you have 2 votes. You can't vote with both hands, and especially if you got 5.
We in San Diego, we have because it's so big, so we've got, so voting members of the XCOM include all chapter chairs, 8 member-at-large, chair, 2 vice chairs, secretary, treasurer, and I think that might be it. The other ones are appointed.
That's like 20 people.
Yeah, and so, but you could easily be a MAL and be a chapter chair and be like a vice chair.
Right.
You could
Mhm.
easily have that.
And they only get 1 vote, though, because this is 1
Yeah.
person.
Right, they only vote as one person,
Yeah.
but
even though
they
they're all-
can be elected to all 3.
I mean, we have chapter chairs or chapter officers that are also section officers. That happens all the time.
So therefore, I think,
Okay.
unless there's a special rule,
Okay, just 1 vote.
which the nomination committee should keep it.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yep. And again, secret ballot, vTools works very well for that. We've never had a tellers committee. We've had a teller person.
Well, no, I am the
Yep.
person.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
you just say,
She is the committee.
I am the committee. Committee of what? It's like a one-person team.
Yeah, in fact, I think the last few elections, Randy Wolf has been our teller.
Yeah, Randy's been a telling.
So who's this committee though?
Yep. And then it's good form to inform each candidate of the results before announcing it to the general membership. And key dates, again, this is based on what's in the ops manual. It can vary by section. So it's saying mid-January, appoint the NNA chair.
That's reasonable, like you're just appointing everything around that.
Yeah.
Like everything that's not elected.
Yep.
Yeah.
May issue the call for nominations around mid-September, communicate the slated candidates, and then make provision for petition candidates. And that way, if any come in before you start the election process, then you can get them added to the ballot as well.
And this truly is the galactic timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But my attitude on that one is, as a petition candidate, if somebody says, all you have to say is, I want to be on, and that ought to be sufficient to
Yep.
stick them on.
Yep. And as long as they're an IEEE member in good standing.
Yep.
Then they're eligible.
In late October election.
Yep. And then it didn't. So the manual doesn't talk about how long to hold the election open. So it's not clear whether it's.
Didn't it say 2 weeks that it was?
I didn't see where in the manual where it stated.
No, no, especially if some section, like, not saying San Diego is late, like, you need to get, you need to have, you need to have people in office, and so, like, I think we made it a week.
Yeah, I think we've done anywhere from a week to a month.
For the polls to be open.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just election day is when they close.
Mhm.
Correct. All right, we're on the same page.
And then ideally,
I'm sorry, I thought it said 2 weeks, that it was the middle.
yeah, I looked. So I had the same question. I couldn't find anywhere, either in the training material or in the ops manual.
Back, then that, you can see why you'd have to have a longer period of time. Because it would be mailed to them before they see it.
And we have a lot of folks that are even more creative than me that don't even have a email. And they like to vote.
Oh.
We have our list.
But we're not gonna talk about it.
And then the last slide just talks about some of the same stuff that Sean already covered. I mean,
Gentle persuasion.
yes. So, I mean, one of the reasons why we only have a single candidate per position is because we don't have a lot of depth, we don't have a large pipeline. We have a very skinny pipeline, very thin straw. So so I was going through the CLE material. It pointed me very quickly to, well, these are some strategies to try to get more candidates in the queue. And so just talked about the standard common sense strategies for increasing the size of your volunteer pool.
So do they ever suggest, or has anybody ever heard of us retraining people after, let's say they've been a section chair for 2 years, and they go on to something else, and have you ever heard of it coming back?
So are you ready to go through the chairs again in this section?
Yes.
Yeah.
We
You've done that before? You've lived that dream?
well, so in fact, myself, when I was exiting as section chair, like I was, needed to find a candidate to run. I think theoretically the person before me should have found somebody, so I had to find somebody, and I just couldn't find anybody. So
You're right.
Well, we seem to have a tradition now in the voices section that where the past section chair goes on immediately to be the PACE chair.
Oh, so they're always in our section the nominating committee chair, but so I basically said, well, I don't have anybody, so I'm looking at, okay, here's Tony Spurgeon. He was chair 10 years ago, or 8 years ago, so, Tony, would you be willing, like, are you kidding me? And then you said yes. Okay. And I have seen that it really seems to work well to have 2 years as chair instead of 1 year.
So we talked about that in our section, and there were several folks on the OpCom that did not want to do that.
Well, and
It's not mandatory.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were talking about having elections every other year, or just or
You
just
guys do
having
1
them.
year.
What's that?
Boise, you guys do 1 year?
Yeah, we only do 1 year.
Yeah, so we have an election every year.
That's what the default is.
Yes.
Unless you have,
The majority
in your
Bylaws.
you can change it to 2.
Yep. But if you want to change your bylaws, then you have to put that out for a vote as
Right.
well.
Exactly, just like
yeah.
somebody being elected to office. But that, actually, I think that's a logical thing to do, is to make it where it's a 2-year term, kind of like these guys, because it makes it a lot easier if we link it all up.
It does take a while to come up to speed, too.
Well, and it's come up at the galactic level, the president actually is elected annually.
Mhm.
And so you're not, by the time you're president, you're almost done being president. And so that gives a lot of power to the paid staff that aren't going anywhere.
Yep.
All right. Final slide, just pointer to additional resources. A lot of this came from the ops manual and from the CLE training. And then if you already have if you've had an NNA committee set up previously, then they may have already established procedures, so you don't have to reinvent your procedures each time. Oops.
Thank you, Chris.
Now,
Thanks.
Chris, in Boise, you've got kind of a succession planning process. What is your path? Yeah, when Utah has a